Hey foodies, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to make my mussel dish, pretty awesome dish made with my spice mix of Indian spices, and then we're going to put it with a spring onion flatbread. So you can pretty much make any flatbread that you want, but because I'm going to use this part for the actual mussel dish, I thought I might as well use this part up for the flatbreads. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to get those going and then we can crack on with the mussels. So I've got 1 cup of flour here. Just going to sieve that into a bowl to make sure there's no lumps of flour in there. And then for the water aspect, you can just chop it up if you want to, but I want to have a really smooth and then quite intense flavour. So if you were just to chop this up, you wouldn't be able to get as much in the mix. So what I'm going to do is chop this up and then I'm going to throw it into the blender and then I'm going to add half a cup of water. So I'm going to start off with half the amount of water to flour and then see how it is. If we need to, we can always add more water to it. This recipe doesn't contain any yeast, so we can just adjust the ratios afterwards and it won't affect the actual end result. So we can half cup, and then if it's too wet, remember when we come to roll it out, you're actually going to be dusting the board or worktop with some flour, so it's still going to have a little bit more flour going into it. So half cup and blend. That is a really, really beautiful green. So now I'm going to season my flour. So the reason I season the flour is so it will be evenly distributed. So it's much easier now to season it than afterwards, because you just have to work a lot harder to get that out. So we can just get all of that in. You can add a touch more water just to get that out, and then we're just going to mix that all together. Let's just add a glug of olive oil. That's going to help it in the pan, and it's just going to give you a much looser mix, so it will be much nicer. So you can already see that this is going to need a lot more flour, because what I didn't take into account is the water content of these. So let's get a little bit more flour. So let's just give that a really good mix. So that is actually come together quite nicely. There's still some flour in the bottom of the bowl, so we can just use that for dusting afterwards and it will just come into our flatbread. So this is quite soft, so that can go over there, and then we can just give this a quick knead just to loosen it up, and then if it starts to stick, we can just take a bit of that flour, rub it on the board, and that will just bring that sticky bit just straight back into the mix. Such a beautiful green colour. So I'm actually quite excited to see how this turns out. So this is actually a new one for me, so I think it's going to work really, really well with the mussels. So, and it's a bit unusual actually to have an Indian spiced mussel dish, because whenever you see spiced, it's always Thai. So this one is a bit different. So that's come together really nicely now. So I'm just going to put it in a bowl. Going to grab some cling film, and then this is just going to prevent it from developing a skin. Cling film out, a little bit of a drizzle, rub that round, and then just press it up against that dough, and you can just leave it there for 10 minutes at least. For the mussels, I've got my spring onions. I've got a little bit of vegetable stock here. I always use like vegetable or chicken rather than fish stock, just because it has, for me, a rounder flavour and it doesn't overpower. So I'm going to go in with some cherry tomatoes, some tomato paste, The reason for adding tomato paste is because I'm putting it with a flatbread, I want to thicken up that sauce. So by adding this, it will just give me a sauce that will stick a bit better to the flatbread. If I wasn't putting it with the flatbreads and we were just going straight in or just serving it with a baguette, a bread that can like mop up that sauce, then there's really no need for this. We're going to finish it with some coconut cream, a chili, I've got some garlic and ginger to go in, and I've got my Jaipur curry powder. So this one is a blend that I make, so I'll link that down in the description below. This one actually is, I make it for FODMAPs, which is a type of diet, and it doesn't have any garlic powder. So just check if you're FODMAP that your spice mix doesn't have garlic or onion powder in. So all we need to do with this is we can take off those roots and then just run the knife through this. You would normally use shallots, but because I've made the flatbreads, I'm just going to use these spring onions. Whatever your preference is, that will work. So I'm going to put a little bit of the green in as well. So that is ready. And we can just put it all in a bowl so it's ready to go straight in the pan. I'll add a big teaspoon of ginger in there, and then I've got some garlic. So I'm just going to use one decent sized clove, and that will be enough. And then half of the chili I'm going to put in, and the other half I'm just going to do rounds like this, and they can be sprinkled on top. So I'm just going to knock the seeds out. I don't want them to be super hot. And then this one we can just do a fine dice, so a little brunoise. So that can go in, and then these can just be chopped in half so they blister. And then the mussels. I got these this morning, and the best way to store mussels, especially if you're not going to use them the same day, is this is a clean tea towel that I've just run under the cold tap. There's no liquid in here, they're dry. Or if there is liquid, it's because they've just come out of the shells since they've been in the bowl. So I got rid of all that liquid that they came in, and then just put the towel on top and left them in there. That stops them from drying out, and it just keeps them much longer and fresher. So we need to run through these. So if there's any broken ones, you just need to get rid of those. You can't take the risk of eating these. So if it's broken like this, then you just have to throw him away. So, and then if they're open, just give them a squeeze. And if they don't close, then it means that they've died. So he's closing now because he was open much more before. So he's still good. And then these beards you want to get rid of as well. So you can just pull the beards off, and then with a knife you can just scrape around their base so you can clean all that dirt off. So those are now clean and ready to go. So I'm just going to put the cloth back on top of them and put them in the fridge until we're ready to cook them. So now I'm just going to roll out my dough and we can cook these, and then once that's done we can get the mussels ready, because they are literally minutes to cook. So this is actually the longer task. Can get this out, give the worktop a little bit of a dust, and then I'm just going to cut this into 4, and then just roll it out. I haven't actually got a rolling pin, so I'm just going to use my cling film and roll that out. So just make sure there's some flour there. So he's ready to go in. So just fire up the pan, sort of medium high. Okay, so you just pick it up. Just gonna brush off that excess flour because that will burn. So you can use a pastry brush when it's on the worktop if it's easier, and then just throw it down. Just check the underside. That's it, nice. So this one can come out. We can move that to the back. And then I'm going to use this Le Creuset pan because what you need is a pan with a lid. So when it starts to steam, you can just trap all that steam in there, and that's going to help cook the mussels. We can go in with some olive oil. And then I'm going to put in my spring onions, ginger, garlic, and the chili of Brunoise. So we're just going to get that going. We give that a minute just to soften them down. So that is already starting to smell like really fresh and fragrant. So I'm just going to get my mussels. Always want to keep the mussels in the fridge. So the spring onion is starting to soften. So I'm going to go in with my spice mix. So just a small teaspoon of mix, a small teaspoon of tomato paste as well. So normally in mussels you would use white wine or a sherry, but for this one I'm just going to use stock because it's an Indian dish, and Indian dishes very, very rarely, if any, actually have alcohol in. We can throw in our cherry tomatoes, and then our mussels can go in. So just make sure that you've checked them all. There's one with a beard, so I'm just going to get rid of that. They can go in, and then I'm just leaving the water that's left at the bottom here. So that's still going to take in some liquid because there's going to be some sea salt inside the shells. Let's just give my hand a wash. And then our stock can go in. I'm going to turn up the heat and put the lid on. And they're going to take about 4 minutes. So while they're doing that, we can chop up our flatbreads and then just get ready to serve. And you can really cut these however you want. So let's just cut them into quarters, and then you can just throw those down on the board, and then you can just grab one when you're having your mussels. So that is steaming pretty aggressively now, so just going to knock the heat down. It's been going for a couple of minutes, so let's not use that one because that's the one from the mussels. So they're starting to open up, so just give them a mix, and as they mix around, that will just open them up. Look at those guys. See, they're opening up nicely, so they're ready to come off. Just make sure the cloth is getting the handles. Can take these off. They're smelling fantastic. And then with my slotted spoon, I'm just going to put them into the bowls. Just grab the bowl, spoon them in. Pile them up. And any that haven't opened, don't eat them. So as long as they've opened a little bit, then you can just pull them apart. So like this one, he's opened slightly, so you can just pull him and he's going to be great. So back onto the heat. just to finish our sauce, so I've just got my coconut cream here. Can add some of that. So make sure it's not all liquid, because this one is really firmed up. So you want some of that milk and then some of this cream. And that's just going to give it a really nice, light, fresh, and also just a really smooth consistency for the sauce. And then we're going to wait for that to cook down. So we just need to reduce it slightly, and then we will pour that over the mussels, and that's just going to give them enough heat then. So, because obviously they're sitting on the side, they're still hot, but this will just heat them up again. So then when you dip in with your flatbread, it's just going to be a flavour punch that is going to be pretty awesome. So let's just boil this up, and then we can pour that over. That's at the consistency I want it. So I can just bring it over. Gonna little bit of chopped coriander, very lightly. Drop that in. Give it a shake so it starts to wilt, and then we can just pour over our sauce. And notice I didn't put any salt in because you've got the sea salt, so you don't need to season this. If you season it, you're going to find that they are way too salty. So we can just pour that over. A few bits of chili. Knock the seeds out if you don't want them. Give the bowl a wipe just to clean it up. And that is it. That is Indian spice mussels with a spring onion flatbread, and that is a pretty tasty, awesome meal. So if you like the t-shirt and you like the dish, then go grab one. I'll link it down below, and also my spice mix that's perfect for FODMAP as it doesn't contain garlic or onion powder in. So give it a go. Let me know what you think of it in the comments, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, happy cooking.